I recently figured out I have a superpower. Check this out. I can't do that for too long. It starts to really hurt my fingers and kind of electrocutes everything in its path. This is the Babolat RPM Rough tennis string review. If you do enjoy tennis string reviews such as this, that are consumer friendly and honest from my point of view, do me a favor and hit that like button and consider hitting subscribe so more tennis players out there can get a hold of this information. This 8-sided and textured copolyester has a high asking price of about $250 per reel and about $18 per packet. Let's see if this high asking price from Babolat is anywhere near to be good for consumers such as you and me. Coming from the baseline, the spin coming off these strings were fantastic. The top spin was high over the net and dipping low into the ground and then kicking up into my opponent's strike zone, maybe even slightly higher. And the underspin for both backhand and forehands stayed very low after the bounce. Because of the low-natured power of this string, slicing away with high rack head speed and ripping the ball from the baseline was highly encouraged. However, the comfort and power were a completely different story. The power was almost non-existent. This is probably the second lowest powered copolyester I've reviewed on this tennis channel. The first one being the Untitled Chapter. The comfort also was extremely disappointing. It was not so uncomfortable that it gave me arm and wrist problems, but even on slight mishits that were just a little bit off center for ground strokes from the baseline, you definitely felt it in your arm and wrist and maybe even a little bit of in your elbow. So if you guys have elbow problems, look elsewhere. Don't buy this string. For serves and overheads, I felt like I lost anywhere from 5 to maybe even 15 miles per hour on my flat first serves. It's really disappointing that a power-oriented string, such as this, would actually give me less miles per hour on something as high rack head speed oriented like a serve and overhead. However, the redeeming quality for the serves, at least for this string, was the really good spin potential for slice and kick serves, pretty similar to the baseline I just mentioned. For the volleys and touch shots, if you rely your singles and or doubles game on closing the net, look elsewhere. Even on very cleanly struck volleys, the ball lands anywhere from 6 inches to 2 feet shorter than you would expect, which is a huge disappointment. And for the finesse shots, like drop shots when you're at the baseline, or maybe a short angle soft volley put away. You're not going to be able to trust this string because of the lack of comfort and natural ball pocketing coming off the string bed. Again, if you guys are finesse-oriented tennis players, please look elsewhere to save yourself some money. So at about 3.5 hours of straight hitting the RPM Rough, originally strung at 55 pounds, it's still at around 55 pounds. Maybe even a little bit higher, but still, pretty good tension maintenance. People on my live stream and YouTube comments have been saying that the RPM Rough is actually a softer string than the RPM Blast. By the way, I do live stream Tuesdays and Thursdays, 7 p.m. Central Time, so come hang out with me if you guys have any questions you want me to answer right away. On the Tennis Warehouse website, their text for this string actually says, our playtesters found it a tad softer and more powerful than the original RPM Blast, resulting in a slightly more penetrating shot. This is not a tad softer. It's incredibly stiff on the arm, much more than the RPM Blast. And it is not more powerful. There's almost no ball pocketing coming from the RPM Rough whatsoever. This is a load of bullshit. Do not trust them. At least with the RPM Blast, it's soft, it's comfortable. It might not give as much spin, but the ball pocketing and finesse shots were there. This is a complete lie. I have no idea why people would claim this coming from this playtest. It's an absolute load of bullshit. I have no idea what Babolat is trying to accomplish with the RPM Rough. If you want significantly more spin potential, try a sided copolyester that is 4 or 5 sided, like the Solinco Tour Bite or maybe even the Solinco Hyper G. And if you want something more comfortable, try something like the Technofiber Razor Code or even the Yonex Polytour Pro. All of those strings I mentioned are significantly cheaper than the RPM Rough. And as for a regular consumer, I actually can't recommend this tennis string to anybody. If you want something softer, there's softer strings out there. If you want something with more spin potential, there's better strings out there than the RPM Rough. I'm just completely lost and confused as why Babolat would make the RPM Rough even available in the marketplace. It's a real disappointment. As always, this RPM Rough was playtested with my Yonex EZO 98 stock form, the 2020 version, strung at 55 pounds. And as always, happy hitting.